Hello everyone. So today we're going to take a look at using multiple if statements when it comes to real life big projects where you might be faced off with a situation where you need to maybe check for five, six, or even more statements that are part of the same atomic process. And you have to do it before you can finalize a decision, before you can take an action. So in this example right here, when you're starting out, you might be tempted to do something like this example that I have here. So notice here I have three levels deep if statements, and the problem with something like this is, imagine I come back here to this piece of code after 5 or 6 months. I will be lost. How do I read through? It will take a while for me to make sense out of it, and it will take a while for me to find the actual action that is being performed, which is right here after all those if statements. And also, if I wonder what's the result if this if statement is not true, so if I scroll down, I get confused again because I don't know which one of these return statements is the result of this failure or this failure or this failure, because then I have to pay a very close visual attention in order to make to see that which of these return statements is associated with this one and with this one and with this one. So we have the exact same copy of the same file over here. Here we're gonna we're gonna see how we can improve the situation and how we should do it. And then we're gonna compare it with the original file. And first, let's just go through it. And let me mention this. This is just an imaginary piece of code. I've tried to make it as real as possible. So don't pay any attention to these things like the login session, the passport here, the user, or these response type and things here and there. I've tried to mimic a real life situation as much as possible. Again, everything here is just imaginary, so don't pay close attention to anything. All you need to pay attention to is to actually, if you're faced with such a situation, how do you flatten your if statements and how do you improve code readability and also, of course, scalability in the long run. So let's take a quick overview. First thing, we have an authorization class and that has a method that says grant auth token. So we are granting an authorization token against a session that is provided. So what we are doing first is we're grabbing a record from the database against the session. So we're grabbing the login session record. And then the first thing that we need to do is we need to check whether the login session record that we wanted was actually found. After that, we have another check. We're looking for whether the login session that we just received is actually authenticated. If it is authenticated, finally, we have yet another check where we are looking for the user that is associated with that login session. So if that user is also found, finally, we are issuing an authorization token to the user. All right, so now let's move over to demo one, and let's start making things better. And let's just see how we can do. I haven't prepped for this. We'll do things as we move along with the video. So how we can do it. All right, so the first thing, the rule of thumb is to negate a statement. So instead of checking if something is true, you need to check if something is not true. That will make it much simpler and much easier. That will eliminate the need in most cases for having an else here. And also that will, make the if statements independent and therefore eliminating the need for having multiple nested statements. So let me take out all of this code from inside the first if statement, and let me move this result of the check the statement inside. And of course, now I'll need to negate it. So if the login session is not found, then we are returning a failure response right away. So notice how better this is. The result of this statement not being true is right within the if statement itself. All right. So let's paste the rest of the code in here and let's repeat the same process. We can pretty much do this is what you're pretty much going to be doing, like negating it, isolating if statements one by one. 90% of the time, this is what you're going to be doing. But sometimes if two things are very tightly coupled, it is okay to do up to 2 levels deep nested if statements. It's fine, it makes sense. But more than two, like three or even more, that is not a an option. Just don't do that. Just don't do that. Find another way. So not more than 2 levels deep if statements at all in any scenario. So let's continue with the process that we're doing. So here we are negating it. Instead of checking if the login session is authenticated, we are checking if the login session is not authenticated. Then we're returning a result right away. All right, so let's paste down the rest of the code. And next we're looking for the user. So again, let's do the exact same process. Let's grab this, cut it out. Let's move this code over inside and let's negate the user. And again, you can do all sorts of things. You could do like if user is perhaps null, you could do something like this. Let's leave it like that. So if user is null, you could check if user is false. I mean, whatever you have in your logic. So you need to do the negative part of it. So the not true part of it. So once you do that, you return a resultant response right away. All right, so let's space reset the code. So now notice how things have been actually improved by this. So the actual action that needs to happen is now completely isolated, and it's here at the very end of the method. So now if I come 5 or 6 months later back to this code, I can right away make sense out of things. Every single statement, every single action check that is being performed is isolated, and its result is within itself. Here, in here, and everywhere. So now let's take a look at our original situation versus here. So if I come here after 5 months, how would I feel? And if I come here after 5 months, how would I feel? I hope you can imagine the difference, and I hope you learned something from it. And if you have any questions, please leave them down below in the comment section, and I'll be getting back to you. And this was just, to give you an idea and something that I have dealt with a lot in my actual real life projects. So of course, we had a couple of scenarios, where we had much worse situations than this. So many F statements and stuff like that nested. But and that's why it got me thinking that to make actually a video about it, and also um, it it got me thinking that how big of a problem it could possibly be that at the time of development you might not even realize, but when you come back there you will know how big of a mess that is. So it will definitely make a big difference in the future. All right, so that's about it for the video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Till next time.